Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper and are equally relevant for your UPSC preparation. Articles dated 14th of February 2022 are listed on your screen and the timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. This article appeared on page 6 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about the occupational safety in India and the health related issues in the employment sector or the factory sector of India. The context says that the occupational safety and health measures and their legal status is not providing the required support to save the lives of labor class in the country. The author himself has provided many limitations associated with the occupational safety in India. So, the relevance of this article is direct. It is from General Studies paper 3 from the employment perspective. But we will also look into the legal perspective of Occupational Safety and Health Code 2020 of India. The content would include the limitations which were highlighted by the article. So, whenever you go through such kind of articles, try to make notes because such kind of articles can give you those extra pointers, those unique pointers, unique criticism, unique constructive criticism, which will fetch you more marks than the other. So instead of writing the general points such as lack of infrastructure, lack of finance, over governance, instead of writing these generic points, you can write very substantial arguments. You can write substantial pointers in order to gain the attention of the evaluator and fetch more marks. We will also look into the Occupational Safety and Health Code 2020 and some of the possible way forwards. So let's start with simplifying the article. The article calls about these 5 important limitations. The first limitation is that according to the Safe in India report 2021, which is published by the CRUST, the report says that auto sector has one of the highest possible industrial occupational hazards after the chemical industries. And this auto sector has been performing the poorest in its status because of the limited approach on occupational safety. The second one is that despite favoring the ease of doing business by the government, in this regard, government has provided the self-certification program and voluntarily submission of data related to the occupational safety and health in a particular factory. Now, government brought these two initiatives just to reduce the burden or inspector Raj in the country. But what happened? Because of this self-certification and voluntary submission, the people who owns the factory, the owners, the employers have become legally very lethargic. And this has led to the poor compliance rate and ratios across the nation. The third issue highlighted by the author is the poor data collection. Plantation, construction sectors are already excluded from this data collection of labor safety. Construction sector, one of the largest employer in unorganized sector after the agriculture, does not include a proper data collection on labor safety. That is one of the reasons you will find that the construction activity or the places where the construction activity is undertaken, laborers are not wearing the safety equipments they are supposed to wear, not even the helmets. The second issue is that non-fatal reportings are very, very low. So if there is a fatal injury or if there is a fatal accident where a laborer has lost one of the body parts or the laborer has actually died, only those serious cases are taken for data collection. Non-fatal cases, minor injuries, are not even reported to the authorities. Then comes the issue of poor performance. Many states have defaulted on their basic performance. So industrial units are not performing. If they are performing, they are not being evaluated by the states. Most of the northern states falls under this category. There is a low inspector to factory ratio. One single inspector has to go through over 400 industries per year. This also leads to the either default on inspection duty or the low inspection rates. So most of the officers either do not try to go or they just inspect over a phone call. The next one is the higher discretion given to these inspectors while conducting the inspection. This has led to either the collusive corruption, because the inspector or the industry owner are now working in the synchronization to provide data without even conducting the on site inspection. They are putting the targeted approach where they only target those small industries, those small units which do not have the political patronage or which are not supporting the corrupt practices. This has also led to the favoritism in the inspection method. The last one is the poor conviction rate. States like Haryana does not even convict a single person for the non-compliance of labor safety and standards. And the last point is that when India is trying to following the code in order to bring the occupational safety, India is violating some of the conventions of international labor organizations, which included the Labor Inspection Convention and the Labor Statistic Convention. So all these points could be utilized by you to show certain questions related to the limitations of employment in India. As you know, all these standards are limited to the organized sectors or the formal sector only. That is the reason why these safety standards, which are rarely followed in India, are being applicable to just 5% of the industries. Now, with this, it is also important for us to understand what is the Occupational Safety and Health Code in India. So, this was launched 2 years ago, and it talks about the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code 2020, and it has the following features. It is applicable to those factories which have at least 20 workers. So let's say there is a contractor who is employing 19 workers or even 20 workers. So that person can put off these conditions just by showing that he is not even employing one or two workers. Maximum hours are defined, which is very good sign. So 8 hours of working is defined per day. It also defines for the first time the interstate migrant. Now, this definition was extremely important in order to recognize these people as we have seen their condition during the COVID-19 crisis. It also empowers the women to work in all kind of establishment and even at night, that is 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., which was not the condition previously. This is also one of the very good sign given in this code. It also removes any charges being taken from the employee for their maintenance of the safety and health. So it is going to be free for every employed working in a particular factory. It also calls for constitution of National Occupational Safety and the Health Advisory Board by the central government. All these provisions seems very good, but there are certain issues that we have already highlighted in this article, and there are certain others which we are going to discuss. So it provides the rights to the employees. For instance, they have a right for information about their safety standards and whether these safety standards are provided in the factory or not. In case of any serious injury or danger, they can come contact the inspector or the facilitator. They can immediately raise the complaint, or if they are not satisfied with the employer himself, they can make a complaint also. But the point is, how many laborers actually know about all these things? So the basic awareness to the employees is still lacking. And even if these standards are provided to the employee, do they have power to raise the complaint? Is there any easy mechanism for grievance redressal? These are not yet answered by these codes. Then comes the issue of the working conditions. So all these provisions are provided under this code. These facilities should be provided by the employer. If not, there will be the consequences which the employer has to face. So, for instance, they have to provide the separate washing facility for male and female. There is also the provision for transgenders like bathing place or the locker rooms. They have to provide for sitting arrangements, like there can't be a working condition for standing for the entire day. First aid facilities should be provided, cleanliness and hygiene should be provided, adequate lighting, avoid overcrowding, and all these facilities should be provided. Now, the point is, these facilities are provided only by the high grade organized sectors who can easily follow these initiatives. So, where is the facility provided by the government? Can government provide subsidies, tax incentives to those industries, to those units which are providing these better working conditions? So the employer will first of all say that they do not have the financial incentive to provide all these facilities. Maybe they do not have money to create separate toilets for male and female. There is the reason why government has to put some financial support as well. So, with this entire discussion and the critical analysis of Occupational Safety and Health Code 2020, now I will leave you with this question to practice. So, read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page first of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about the colonial architecture with respect to French architecture and its revival or its renovation. The context says that some of the colonial buildings belonging to the French authorities, which are located in Chandranagar in Kolkata, are awaiting for the renovation at earliest. Now, you must be well aware that such kind of architecture is extremely important from the perspective of UPSC examination, both prelims and the mains. And in the mains examination, it is under General Studies Paper 1, where it may be asked with relation to the Indian modern history and also the architecture from the modern India. As we know that there were a number of nations which were colonizing the Indian territory, and one of them was French. Along with them, there were Portuguese, there were Britishers who had the largest area under their control, and also the Dutch. So, from that perspective of modern history, we are going to read this article. We will analyze the basic architectural form in the modern India. So, we'll read about the basic background of French colonial expansion. We'll also look into some of the centers of French in India that may be asked in the prelims in Match the Following. We will also look into the brief background of French power and its rise in India, the Carnatic Wars, that too in the brief format. We'll look into the aspects of French architecture in India, and lastly, we'll also look into Indo-Saracenic or Indo-Gothic architecture in India. Well, as you can see, this is the rough map of India, and in this map, we will look into the aspect of French power and its development. Well, as you must be aware that all the colonial power came from the sea routes. So this was the basic route which was adopted by them. They came all the way from African continent right after the advent of the sea route to India by Vasco da Gama in 1498. And that was the year which led to the foundation of sea routes to India. The purpose of French, British, Dutch, or even Portuguese in the initial phase was the trade. So these were the trading routes which were adopted by these people. So, firstly, they established their colonies, they established their factories as well as their authority in the western front of India. So you'll find that they set up their colonies in Cochin, they set up their colonies in Goa, and also places like Mumbai, Surat, and others. Later on, they also expanded their authority into the eastern side of India. Why? Because there were certain authorities which included the Dutch, which had close trading relations beyond India, that too in Southeast Asia. And this Southeast Asian routes provided the Dutch a single-handed control in the eastern side. After Dutch, it was the Portuguese. After Portuguese, following the same route that Dutch did. English, French, and Portuguese also settled on the eastern front of India. So we had many centers belonging to the colonial period. We have Pondicherry, we have Masulipatam, we have Kolkata, we have Dhaka, and even in the hinterlands such as Patna, Agra, and Kanpur was settled by these people. And French were one of those people who had mostly the trading routes. They fought certain wars, they were defeated badly, and because of this region, their influence in the colonial period was very limited. So, going by this background, let us look into the centers which were established by French in India. These included the Patna in Bihar, Kasim Bazar, Chandranagar, and Kolkata. Currently, Chandranagar is the extended area which is found in the Kolkata itself. The other center included the Dhaka, Balasore, Yanam, Masulipatam, Chennai, Pondicherry, Karaikal, Mahe, Calicut, Mumbai, and Surat. Even after India's independence, there were four centers which were left in the hands of French authorities. This included Yenem, Pondicherry, Mahe, and Karaikal. And still, the Union Territory of Pondicherry included all these four areas. From this map, we come across the important point. The French started from Surat. Then, gradually, they shifted towards the eastern port to Masulipatam, after which they shifted to the further eastern port, that is the Kolkata. And Kolkata became a very important point where the Chandranagar was the hub of French administration and trading businesses. But after the Carnatic War, they were limited to just four centers that we have already discussed. Now, going by the French colonialism, well, French started as the last Europeans to arrive to India for the purpose of trade. In 1664, they established the French East India Company. And French East India Company, like many other companies which were set up in India, does not have the authority only to trade in India. East India Company, French East India Company, or even the Dutch East India Company, they were trading between India to Europe and other parts of Asia also. So French East India Company was settled during the Louis XIV of France. In 1667, they established their factory for the first time in Surat. In 1669 at Masulipatam, which was given the patent by the Sultan of Golconda. So if you go through this map, you'll find that this is the area where Golconda is situated. So this was area which is contemporary to the erstwhile Vijayanagar Empire. So they provided the patent right to the French to trade from Masulipatam. In 1673, Chandranagar was established, and in 1674, Pondicherry was also established, which later on became the core center of French authority. France, along with other European powers, was in the mode to capture the largest possible area in India. So they started from that area of South India where the core authority could be captured. This included the areas belonging to the Nizams of Hyderabad and the Nawab of Arcot. Arcot currently is situated in the state of Tamil Nadu. Because of this thirst towards power and colonization, French had to fight with the Britishers. And Britishers, because of their organized army, parliamentary form of government, and very powerful navy, defeated the French and ended their authority in India. So these are the basic three wars which French had to fight in India to set their power. However, in the last one, they were badly defeated and they had to compromise with the limited power in India. So if you go through this entire slide, this is just a basic revision of your history text. So Carnatic. Carnatic is the area which is situated in the current part of Tamil Nadu. Carnatic was the word used by the foreign powers to show the area of Coromandel coast. Carnatic wars were three, started in 1740 and ended in 1764. It started from the Battle of Thom, which was fought in Madras. The basic cause was the culmination of Australian War of Succession and the provocation made by the British Navy on the French power. Well, the first one was actually won by the France. French forces fought against the force of Anwar ud-Din, who was the Nawab of Carnatic. Nawab was defeated and French established their rule in the area of Carnatic. The point was that whosoever rules the Carnatic rules the eastern part of trade of India. After the war, the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle was signed, and these kind of treaties are extremely important for your prelim examination. What was the outcome? The English got the Madras and French authorities got the North American territories, one of the largest colonies ever captured by any small nation. Then after just a year, in 1749, through the Battle of Ambur, French Governor Dupleix, this name is very important, so he fought with the overconfidence to beat the Britishers from India. And the second reason behind this was the dispute between the Nizams of Hyderabad and Nawabs of Carnatic. Now, this time it was the Britishers who won under the leadership of Robert Clive. They defeated the Nawab of Orkot, who was functioning under the French supremacy. The Treaty of Pondicherry was signed, and because of this treaty, Muzaffar Jung became the Hyderabad's Nizam and Muhammad Ali became the Nawab of Carnatic. They were in the sides of Britishers. Then, 4 years down the line, because there was a 7-year war which was going on. So, this is important for your world history as well. So, 7-year wars was going on in the Europe. These wars were fought for the cause of Austria. Both French and Britishers were fighting in Europe, and the same led to the anguish in the Indian colony as well. The important battle associated with the third one is the Battle of Bharadwaj. In this, the General Eyre Coote of England completely defeated the French army who was under the Thomas Arthur. And this was the end of this war and also the Carnatic War. And at the end, the Treaty of Peace of Paris was signed between both these powers. French was reduced to the lowest level, as we have discussed, only 4 centers in India. So these were the basic background, and as you must have understood by now that because of this limited approach, French architecture in India is very limited. So my purpose of giving you this entire historical background was that because of their limited expansion in India, their influence on Indian architecture or Indian influence on French architecture was very limited. Secondly, wherever they were limited in their location, those were the only places where we can find the French architectural design. Britishers, on the other hand, colonized the entire subcontinent. That is the reason why you can find the British architecture in the cities like Ajmer, Delhi, Lucknow, Mumbai, Madras, and where not. The basic feature of French architecture are found in the cities of Pondicherry, Karaikal, Yenam, Coromandel Coast, Yenam on the Coromandel Coast, Mahe on the Malabar Coast, and the Chandnagar in West Bengal. As they were rooted out from Surat, Masulipatnam, and others, their architecture over those places were very limited. The influence which were taken by the French included the French medieval architecture, the Roman architecture, especially the pillars, the Bengali architecture in Chandnagar, and the Tamil architecture in and around the Pondicherry. The unique features included the arches which resembles the temple, square wooden windows. Use of dome was very limited. You will rarely find the use of domes in the French architecture. There were engravings on the pillars and the arches. Pillars were mostly cylindrical in shape that followed the Roman style. They utilized the local material. They had given the highest importance to the climatic conditions. So that is the reason why the French architecture in Pondicherry follows the different style of rainfall than what was developed in and around the Calcutta. There is no writing which is available on the walls like the Britishers who used to write or engrave on the walls. They did not utilize the concept of gardens, animal motifs, or even the raised platforms for their building. On the other hand, the British architecture was based on the raised platform. Most of the architecture in the French were close to the level of the roads around the particular buildings. As you can see from this photograph, the arch which is used in this building mostly follows the architecture of temples in India. Similarly, there is, as you can see, there is very high engravings or designs on the walls. The pillars are cylindrical in shape and the windows are square in shape, that too made up of woods and not stones. In this architecture, you can see there are Roman type of pillars which are used, there are engravings, and there are square and rectangle windows. Now coming to the importance of Indo-Saracenic architecture. This is very likely to be asked in the mains or the prelim examination. The Indo-Saracenic is also known as Indo-Gothic, Mughal Gothic, New Mughal or Hindu style, and it got influenced from Indo-Islamic architecture as well as the temple architecture of India. This architectural design was adopted by the British colonists. It was developed right from the middle of 19th century to the middle of 20th century. As you can see, these are the important elements which are found in this architecture. Onion or bulbous domes. This is the most important thing that they have adopted from India. They have the concept of chhaja or overhanging eaves. They have pointed arches or the cusped arches. There is a horseshoe arches also, and not in the framework of a temple. They use the contrasting colorings and mostly use the stones instead of lime and mortar in the case of French. They have their curved roofs in Bengali styles. They have domed shaped chhatri. Now, this chhatri was adopted by Indo-Islamic architecture in a complete format. They have pinnacles in their buildings, they have towers and minarets, they have open pavilions with the bangla roofs. They have jali systems also. They have jharoka style screening windows. This can be found in the central secretariat buildings in and around Delhi. They also adopted the garden constructions from the Mughals. There is a Mughal garden inside the Rashtrapati Bhavan also. As you can see, this is the Gothic architecture. This is the core Gothic architecture which you will find in European countries. So as you can see, there are pointed or pinnacle structures at the top of the building. There are windows which are mostly rectangular in format. And then they have the basic Roman arches. So this architecture, this basic style was then intermixed with the Indo-Islamic architecture. So what they have borrowed, as you can see, they have borrowed the domes, bulb shaped domes. They have borrowed the minaret systems from India. They have borrowed the large gates, and they have also borrowed the chhatri system. Both these architecture, the first one being Gothic architecture, the second one being Indo-Islamic architecture, were culminated into the Indo-Gothic architecture. So this is the basic culmination. As you can see, there are pinnacles or pointed arches, there are domes, there are chhaja or chhatri systems, there are pillar systems, there are large gates. So both these style culminated into the single one. After understanding both French and Indo-Saracenic architecture, I will leave you with this practice question. So read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. And I also leave you with this mains related practice question. So read this question carefully and try to answer within 150 word limit. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page 8th of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about the critical analysis of the PMLA, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The context says that the Supreme Court is looking into the allegation of misuse of anti-money laundering law, which means the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002 by the government and the Enforcement Directorate. Well, if Supreme Court is looking into the allegation, the purpose for the UPSC preparation is that we should know about some of the statutory bodies working in the country and also the allegation associated with it. PMLA is also associated with the internal security, which includes the financial crimes in the country. So the relevance of this article is from the fact that it is utilized for your General Studies Paper 2, Legal Framework and Statutory Bodies, and General Studies Paper 3 for Internal Security. This article would include, we'll read about the article. So the content would include, first of all, we'll know about the article. Then we will look into what money laundering is all about, the objectives which were behind the creation of this law, the offenses under this law, authorities which are entrusted for conducting the investigation under this law, and what are the allegations which are associated with this particular law. So the article says that there is a basic difference between how the Enforcement Directorate under this act functions. The act provides overemphasizing powers, less accountability, and the overutilization of power without informing the particular accused in a particular act. So, for instance, there is a person who has committed the financial crime. So Enforcement Directorate will file the first information or FIR in its case without even telling the accused person about that FIR. This also undermines the particular right enjoyed by a person. So the point is why these kind of allegations are being raised. The answer to this would be lack of wisdom while framing this kind of law. Now the question arises that what is money laundering on which this law was formed? Well, money laundering is simply the converting of illegal profit or the revenue by an organization, entity, or an individual into the legal one. Why legal one? Because legality of the money will allow a person to invest, spend, buy property, or consume. So understand this through an example. Suppose that a person is doing a business, let's say in automobile sales. From this business, he has earned, let's say, 10 lakh rupees this month. But as there was a taxation on this sale, so he had to pay, let's say, 10% into GST, which is around 1 lakh rupee. Now his total earning was 10 lakh, which included 1 lakh of tax, which he has not paid. So that 1 lakh would become the illegal funds or illegal money. Illegal not always means that the money is earned from the criminal activity. So this is also illegal because this is going against the legal framework mentioned in the Income Tax Act. So if it is going against the act, it is illegal. So this 1 lakh illegal, as it is a black money, what it will become? It will become a black money. So that person will try to convert this black money into the legal money, that is white money in normal parlance. And the process of converting this black money into legal or white money is known as money laundering. Alright, so in this entire process, what that person is doing? He is trying to hide the illegal source of their income. So, what was the illegal source? Violation of tax rules. After legalizing this money, that person can either consume this money, invest it, or save it. But in the eyes of authorities, this money will turn out to be legal. So, this is the entire concept of money laundering. Now, the point is, what was the purpose of bringing Money Laundering Act? The purpose was to prevent the generation of money laundering, to combat those channels which are turning the illegal money into legal monies, provide for confiscation of the property which were derived from illegal money, and provide the matters connected and incidental to the act of money laundering. Basically, the act talks about every aspect where there could be the causes, generation, and utilization of illegal money in the economy. Now, these are the certain offenses which are covered under this act. So you can pause the video and go through this factual information. There is nothing more important to understand in this slide, and there is nothing more to remember also. But this is just to give you a glimpse about what are the basic offenses. There is very less chance that this would be asked in any stage of this examination. Then come those authorities, which is also the focus of this article. These are the two authorities, the first one being the Enforcement Directorate, also known as ED. The second one is Financial Intelligence Unit of India, FIUIND. Both these authorities are functioning under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Both these agencies are working under the Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Yes, despite working towards the criminal offenses, they are working under the Ministry of Finance and not the Ministry of Home Affairs. The first, that is ED, is responsible for investigation. The FIU is responsible for reporting of economic crimes. The FIU receives the information, it processes, analyzes, and decimates the same information related to the crime. This information is later on utilized by the Enforcement Directorate to control the money laundering in the economy. FIU is also responsible for coordinating and strengthening the national and international intelligence agencies. They also help in investigation, and they also work towards the scheduled offenses, which are separately investigated by different agencies including CBI, Custom Department, CB, and others. Basically, FIU is similarly functioning towards what RAW is doing in the India's external security or Intelligence Bureau is doing for India's internal security, that is collecting the intelligence. ED, on the other hand, processes that information to control the crime. they prosecute a person, they take action against attachments, confiscation of properties under the scheduled offenses. So the first agency works for the collection of information, the second is for putting that information for investigation and prosecution. Now, what are the issues which are highlighted in the functioning of ED? Now, the first issue is that Enforcement Directorate does not discloses the enforcement case information report. This is what is the basic crux of this article and also the most important criticism of functioning under the Enforcement Directorate. ECIR is like the FIR which we normally see in a police station. This ECIR has the entire information about the crime and the accused. However, it is not given to the accused. So the person who is being accused in a case does not even know for what reason that person has been called in that particular crime. This also means that the accused is denied of the basic right of knowledge about the case. This ECIR is also registered under the discretion of the Enforcement Directorate. So whether the officer want to put the ECIR or not. This also provide the ample avenues for corrupt practices. As the information remains hidden with the ED, accused will never know for what reason he or she has been accused. This does not distinguish between the accused and the witnesses while they are summoned. So whether you are a witness or whether you are an accused, you are called by the Enforcement Directorate using the same protocol. So a person who arrives in the court for the investigation does not even know whether they are the witnesses or whether they are the accused. And lastly, because of this high level of discretion, there is the politically motivated action being undertaken by the Enforcement Directorate. So these are the allegations which were highlighted in the petition which were filed in the Supreme Court. Now the question arises that what is the possible way forward? The possible way forward as of now is that there should be a guiding principle of rule of law. Government and the Enforcement Directorate should bring such kind of rules, laws and the provisions which are basically constitutional abiding and does not violate the fundamental rights of the Indian citizens. The rest of the way forward cannot be provided as this matter is under sub judice. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the last article for the day. This article appeared on the text and context part of the Hindu newspaper Delhi edition. Now this is only available in the digital format. So if you are wondering that you are not receiving these kind of articles in the physical format, well, they are not published in that manner. So do not worry about not covering these topics. We at Rouse IAS through the DNS initiative are providing those relevant topics of text and context which can be asked or which require explanation for the UPSC examination. All articles every day from this section are not at all relevant. Whatsoever is relevant, that will be provided under the DNS. This article titled as the import ban on drone. Well, few days back, that is 9th of February, Director General of Foreign Trade DGFT prohibited or put a ban on the import of drones, either completely built, semi knocked down or completely knocked down. It simply means that except for defense purposes, research and development and for assembly purpose, all other kind of drones are now banned for imports. That is, no one can import drones for their personal or commercial uses. However, anyone who is looking to bring the components, that is parts of drones, are free. That is, no permission would be required by those people to import the parts, diodes, chips, motors, lithium batteries and others. So now this kind of ban is created with an objective, and the objective is to boost the research and development in the country and to boost the Make in India or Assemble in India program. So what we will read in this article, that what are the current sources and need for the drones in India, what does this order from the government says, what was the situation which was prevailing in India before this order, what are the measures which government has taken for the indigenous drone manufacturing in the country, and how does the drone industry has reacted to this import ban. So, what does the order says? There is a complete prohibition in three categories. However, if a person is importing for research and development and defense, they are exempted. If they are importing only the components and not the finished product, they are exempted from this import. Now you can easily deduce that component import is free from any regulation. Simply means that government is looking for establishing the assembling of drones in India. So what government is trying to do? They would like to encourage the entrepreneurs to import the equipments, assemble in India and then export outside. As far as situation before this order is concerned, well, there was a restricted and prior clearance was required from the Director General of Civil Aviation, which is also responsible for the regulation of civil aviation in India. So previously drones which were less than 250 grams did not require any kind of import clearances from the DGCA or any license from the DGFT. However, this has now changed completely. So irrespective of the weight, if it is a complete unit, it will not be imported at all. Now, what government has taken from the perspective of measures to promote the indigenization of drone manufacturing? The first one is that they have reduced the number of forms required to open a factory or a firm for the authorization or manufacturing of drones. The second one is that they have dispensed the security clearance as soon as possible. They have provided the blanket exemption to all kind of permissions. That is, all these reasons are important for your ease of doing business. Then government has also outlined the production linked incentive scheme to make India the global drone hub by 2030. This is important because India has already achieved a very tremendous step as far as mobile technology is concerned. India is the second largest mobile manufacturer in the world after China, and this tremendous growth has been seen in the last 6 to 7 years because of the government steps. And lastly, government is also looking to encourage the foreign manufacturer to set up assembly lines in India. To be specific, there are certain examples like brands such as DJI, which would like to invest in India and make drones in the localized markets. Now, what happened to the industry? How industry has reacted to this move? Most of the manufacturers are considering it to be a good move because this will develop and protect the drone industry. Because now people will not be able to import the finished good. So what they will do? They will buy those finished goods which are being developed inside the country. That means by Indian manufacturer. Or even if the foreign manufacturer are making it, they will create the assembly lines, they will provide the employment, they will set up the markets that will benefit the economy overall. It will also ensure that there are more number of Indian manufacturers and will also protect the intellectual property, design and software development. It will also make India one of the assembly hub for the world. However, it is likely to hurt those people who do not either have the capacity to build or the capacity to buy at a higher domestic prices or are not working in the research and development field or not belonging to the defense sector, such as the people who are involved in the photography or the videography fields. So those people will find it difficult to buy the cheap imports from China because now they are banned. So except the last one, the three are the good benefits which have been appreciated by the industry overall. With this discussion in place, now I will leave you with this question of the day. The question of the day is based on the previous article that we have just discussed. So read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. That's all for today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you.